Those things that if I give too much thought to it might cause tears to well up in my eyes. But I think to myself, that was the bitter medicine. Hi, my name is Tiffany. Welcome to Present for Myself. Fill in this blank. My biggest regret is that, or I regret that. Who knows what your regret is? You took a job that you didn't want to take, or you took a job that you thought was going to be amazing and it turned out not to be. You gave up a scholarship opportunity. You chose a path in your life educationally or, socially or romantically or spiritually, and you look back on it with regret somehow. Regret is one of those things that we can use to abuse ourselves and beat ourselves up over and over again. It can rob you from your present and your future if you don't handle it properly. So how do you process regret? Well, I've got some powerful ways that I want to talk to you, three powerful ways that I want to talk to you about processing regret. And let me tell you something. One of them, the first one, is wrong. So the first way that I want to tell you about that we process regret is by ruminating. Ruminating is when you think obsessively about something, a negative thought that continues to pound your mind over and over again. For some people, it's a very true mental health issue. For some of us, it comes upon us at times when we least expect it. Some of us make time to ruminate. We just, oh my gosh, if only this, if only that. We think about things over and over again and we ruminate on them. We chew them up in our minds over and over, and we extract every bit of negativity and toxicity out of it that we possibly can. And we just sit there and we just literally beat ourselves up. And like I said earlier, we abuse ourselves. We abuse ourselves with this notion that if only this had have been this way, if only I would have said that and not this, if only I would have married this person, or if only I would have, and we get to that place where we cannot function because we began to resent where we are due to the regret that we have via the rumination that we allow to take place on a regular basis. And one of the things that rumination brings about, I have found often, is that you begin to romanticize. You begin to think that your life somehow would have been so much better. Romanticizing is whenever we think of things better than what they might have really been. And let me tell you one of the ways that I learned to stop ruminating and romanticizing. My father was murdered when I was 3 years old. I never had a chance to know him. He was married to another woman at the time. And so he wasn't in my life the way that I would think that most men would have been in your life. I didn't know him and I was too little to really recall anything. Even at this age, I struggled to see his face. I don't remember anything about him at all whatsoever. Over the course of my life, I've had some very traumatic experiences. Some experiences that would have landed a lot of people, rendered a lot of people incapable of even continuing to survive. And I look back over those times in my life whenever I would sit and I would think about my dad and I would say, if only he was here, he would have protected me from this person, from this man, from all the different types of abuses that I suffered as a child. And I would think over and over again about if only he was here. I was romanticizing what our relationship would have been like, what it could have been like. And I did that for years and years and years. And it made me so resentful of a lot of the things that had occurred and the way that I was currently living my life during those times. And I would resent different people in my life because I would think, you didn't protect me. He didn't protect me. But oh, if my father would have been here, he would have protected me. Well, see, I didn't know my father. So all I can do is romanticize what that relationship would have been like. One day I was sitting there yet again in a period of depression or just great angst, thinking of, oh, if my dad was here, I bet I could talk to him about this. If my biological father was here. And I heard a voice so strong say to me, how do you know? How do you know? Because you didn't know him and you have very little information about him. You don't know what kind of demons he was facing. I'm not saying that, he would have been a bad person to me, but you don't know what his life was yielding for him and how that may have affected and impacted your life. You're a strong, resilient woman. You're a woman who has a lot of gifts and talents, and you've given those gifts and talents to the world, and there's so much more yet to come. How do you know that he would have impacted you in a positive way? And I was like, yo, don't talk about my dad. And then I was like, hold up. You're talking about this notion of someone that I never knew. And then that voice just began to counsel and kind of minister to me and say, you really don't know So stop romanticizing, stop ruminating. It's okay to comfort yourself with, beautiful thoughts and notions, but let's get real here. When it comes to these regrets that you're having, when it comes to the fact that you beat yourself up because of something that you couldn't control, when it comes to the fact that you desire something that never can be at this point, not in that way anyway, you're harming yourself. You're doing yourself more harm than good. So in this moment, it's time for the medicine of realism. It's time to be real. It's time to talk to yourself and say, I don't really know what would have truly happened had I taken that scholarship. I don't know what it could have been like. I don't know what it would have been like. I can guess. I can use just common math, the mental math it takes to go, yeah, because if I had done this, then maybe I would have ended up here. But you don't know who you would have met, what you would have encountered. All you know is what is. So deal with what is, the now, the here, what you have. Stop romanticizing what could have been and walk in what currently is and process that through. Allow yourself to feel your feelings. Allow yourself to, mourn what could have been. But there's a difference between grieving and allowing a spirit of grief to just sit upon you to the point where you can't move forward and you're immobilized because you're ruminating and romanticizing about what should have and could have been. You can never go back and change those things. You can't go back and unclip that hurdle so that you don't fall during that championship race. You can't go back and take that shot again that causes you to win the game and be put on everyone's shoulders. You can't go back and unmarry the person. You can't go back and not take the job and stay there for 5 years and regret almost every single day of it. You can't go back. So stop trying to live in a place that no longer exists. It exists in your mind. So one of the things that you cannot do is continue to process your regrets through rumination because it's not doing you any favors. So what do? How do you process regret to where it can be actually something that becomes beneficial to you? The second way that you process regret that's not wrong, remember, rumination and romanticizing is wrong. It's not going to do you any favors. But the second way, that's a very powerful way that we process regret, is instead of regretting and ruminating and romanticizing, we can reclaim. So how do we reclaim? Let's say that you did give up that opportunity to go to school when you were 18, or maybe something happened and you weren't able to go. You had to get a job because maybe you had a child to take care of, or you became pregnant, or whatever it happens to be, or there was an issue where financially you weren't able to do that. And 10 years have passed, 20 years have passed, and you say to yourself, oh, I couldn't possibly go back to school now. I'm 40 years old. I'm 50 years old. I'm 30 years old. If the resources are available or you can manifest the things that you need in order to do that, then why not? Now, hear me and hear me good here. I need you to understand that there's a popular saying that says you can never go back to the same river. And you can't. You can walk away from a river and return to it in 10 minutes, and it's actually different on a philosophical level. The water that was passing through when you were there the first time is not going to be the same water. There's going to be a piece of sand or a rock that may have moved ever so slightly. A fish that you saw going by won't be there. And the same is true. You can't recreate what it would have been when you were 18 by going back in time right now and redoing your past. But at 30, at 25, at 35, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, what? I've heard all the different ages going back to school. You can still go back. You can still do that thing that you wanted to do then. It's not going to look the same. You may not have the scholarship. You may have to take out a loan or get a grant or something like that. But I want you to think hard about it. Think hard about the opportunity that you gave up or that you couldn't commit to. I don't want you, because only you can be real enough with yourself to say if it's possible. Is it possible? Don't sit and just immediately say, well, no, because I want you to think about that thing. Can you reclaim it? Can you go back and reclaim the opportunity? Not exactly the way it was, but do it differently possibly? Maybe that's supposed to be your legacy. Maybe that's the way that it was supposed to turn out. I say to myself often when I begin to feel anxious and when I begin to feel angsty or when I begin to feel a veil of depression try to cover me, I say to myself, everything is as it should be. And it's one of the mantras that I use to remind myself to stay here, stay now, stay present. Don't go back. Don't look at what was and reclaim. Reclaim the opportunity so that you can be present with it if it's something that you still desire. The third powerful way that we process regret, and this is one of the right ways to do it, is when you can't reclaim. Let's just say you say, I searched far and wide. I looked at it. I did all of the math and, it just doesn't make sense for me to do that at this particular time of my life. It's not going to happen. That particular opportunity has expired. It's no longer there. Yeah, I could have entered the NFL at this particular time, but now at 70 years old, I'm not going to be the linebacker that I desire to be. If you can't reclaim it, then you reframe it. You didn't go to school. You did get married too young, or you feel like you did, or you didn't get married at all, or you wished you could have had kids, or you did have kids and you wished you didn't have kids, whatever it happens to be, reframe it and look at it differently. For myself, when I look back over my life and I reframe this reality that my father wasn't in my life because he was murdered when I was 3 years old, I'm able to reframe that and say, I don't think that made me a weaker person. Maybe there were some things that I would have done differently. Maybe there were some protections that I didn't have because he wasn't in my life. I don't know. Like I said, we'll never know. But it made me stronger. It made me more intuitive. The things that I went through, they added to my empathy. I learned how to seek out, do, discover, be in my own energy and with my own time. And then over time, other people came into my life and they sowed into my life and they spoke into my life and they provided resources for my life and filled that space that I thought needed to be filled. And as a result, I feel like I'm a brilliant person. I feel like I'm a caring and loving person. Everything is as it should be. Say you're the person that took that job and as a result, you lived with toxicity for many years. You can reframe that and say, I can speak on that now. I can speak on it and I can help other people because I went through it. I have an herbal studies degree. It's something that I took on as a means of supporting my clients whenever they needed help as vocalist. So when I studied herbalism, one of the things that I learned about was anthelmintics. Anthelmintics are very bitter herbs. These are the herbs that go inside and they destroy parasites inside of the body. So they have to be strong. They're very astringent and bitter in many ways. I think about my life sometimes and I think about certain of those bitter moments in my life, those bitter truths, those things that if I give too much thought to it might cause tears to well up in my eyes. But I think to myself, that was the bitter medicine. It was medicine nonetheless. It was medicine nonetheless. So bitter medicine is still medicine. It may not be palatable. It may not taste good. It might not taste good to know that you had to go through certain things in your life. Hear me, please, please, please. It may not taste good or feel good to think back on what you had to endure and the things that you had to go through. But I promise you, if you reframe it, it can be medicine for you. It can be medicine for the journey ahead. And hey, listen to this. I know we talk a lot on this channel about showing up for ourselves. And I tell you, fill your cup first. Make sure you're pouring from your overflow. But it also can be medicine for others. That overflow can be medicine for others and help you to speak with and talk to and help to talk others through their situation because you're equipped with your medicine. You've lived it. You've reframed the regrets in your life. So don't let regret immobilize you. Don't let regret make you an Al Bundy where you're sitting around with your metaphorical hand in your pants, watching the game, hating the fact that you had to marry a woman that you never wanted to marry, and resenting your children, resenting the very air that you're breathing, and not being able to live and taste and smell and sense and feel and hear the present and dream and visualize and look forward to your future. Recover. Okay? Listen, we have our community tab available now. I'm so excited about it. I will be posting there. If you don't know what our community tab is, it's a place where I can keep up with you in between the videos. I'll be using that to update you of things that are upcoming, things that are going on in my life with this channel. And then it also allows you to communicate back and forth with me, and it helps us to better build our community, okay? Listen, I'm rooting for you.
Don't know the words we hum.